Good morning and good afternoon to um, the people who are not in the same time zone. Let me share my screen to get started. Okay. Mm. It seems like I'm having some technical difficulty. Can I use a minute and rejoin this meeting really quick?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, sounds good. Sorry about the interruption. Um, uh, first of all, I guess I would like to thank you for inviting me to talk here in this conference. My name is Shamal Bhole, and I am a leading practitioner in cryptocurrency risk and compliance engineering area, which is a long way of saying essentially I build the systems that let large financial institutions handle crypto without breaking the laws. Today, I want to talk about building regulatory grade compliance systems for the cryptocurrencies, and specifically the lessons that are emerging now in what I'm calling the Genius Act era. Because something significant has happened last year, and most of the industry is just trying to catch up with it. So moving along, um, let's get started diving a little bit deeper into background. Let me start with the shift because it's easy to miss how big it is. The most of the crypto's history, compliance was largely voluntary. Some institutions did it well, many did it minimally, and it was usually bolted on the late after the product was already built. Only handful of institutions treated compliance as something to engineer properly from the start. That word is gone. With the Genius Act, the entire US stablecoin industry, it is now on the path where AML programs, sanction screenings, and travel rule compliances, all these are essentially legal requirements, not just like nice to have. For this, I just wanted to mention briefly for this session, we'll try to focus on the risk and compliance aspect on the cryptocurrencies, essentially stablecoin from the US standpoint. rather than like talking about it from the global perspective. So stablecoin issuers are being treated as financial institutions under the Bank Security Act. And there is a key idea I want you to hold on to for this whole talk. Compliance is no longer a feature you add to the crypto product. It has become the infrastructure that determines whether you can legally operate at all. Um, Keeping that in mind, moving along to understanding a little bit deeper into the history. Here's the timeline it looks like. And the end of it is genuinely interesting. The Genius Act was signed into law in July 2025, the first comprehensive federal framework that US payment stablecoins. Then in April 2026, FinSec and OFAC proposed rules that would actually implement the AML and sanction requirements. Comment periods ran through the spring. Now, Congress set a hard deadline, July 18, 2026, 1 year after the law was signed, for the regulators to finalize these rules. And here is the striking part: that deadline came and went, and the rules were never finalized. Six federal agencies, working with the full resources of US government, could not get the final rule book done in the time. The law's effective date still holds true for January 2027. But as of today, the industry is operating against the proposed rules and aren't yet locked, essentially. I'll come back to why that detail matters, because it says something important about how hard this category of work actually is. Um, so let's understand what regulatory grade actually means. So what are we actually being asked to build, essentially? Let's try to understand that. When I say regulatory grade, I don't just mean just screening a transaction. I mean a system that holds up when a regulator examines it. That's much higher bar, and it has four parts essentially. Um, so as you see on the slide, the first one is sanction screening. Every transaction checked against OFAC list before it settles, not after. Second, money laundering risk assessment. That means essentially looking at the behavior and blockchain signals to flag suspicious activity. Third, the travel rule, which requires you to exchange sender and recipient information with the other institution in the transfer. And the fourth is essentially tying it all together. The whole thing has to work real time and be auditable, meaning you can produce a defensible record of what just happened and why that happened. If you miss any of it, you don't have a compliance system and you have a liability. Let's try to understand in the next slide why crypto makes it genuinely hard. So now, if you're coming from traditional finance background, you might think all the banks have done AML sanction screenings for decades. This is a solved problem, and that's where crypto throws a wrench in, because there are three problems here that simply doesn't exist in traditional financial world. Let me try to walk through them because they are the heart of why this is genuinely hard engineering and not just the paperwork. Um, so uh, I try to depict here those three hard problems. So essentially, the first problem is that counterparty identification. So in banking world, an account number will tell you which bank holds that account. A crypto wallet address tells you nothing. It effectively is anonymous. It doesn't reveal which institution, if any, controls it. But the law requires you to now know who is at the other end of the transaction. So before you can even comply, you have to solve an identification problem that traditional finance never had to. Um, Problem two, it's legacy data translation. Institutions have customer records built over decades in their own formats. And for the traditional banking, the travel rule requires you to transmit that information in a specific standardized international format called as IVMS 101. So you have to accurately translate that messy, decades old data into precise standard. And if you get it wrong, you have either broken the law or exposed customer data. Um, Moving along to the last problem, that is real-time correctness at the scale. All these transactions run concurrently. Multiple check happens parallelly at the volume in the real time. Doing that fast without duplicating actions or hitting race condition is genuine distributed system challenge. This is where compliance stops being a legal exercise and becomes hard engineering. So moving along to talking a little bit about the architecture principles that work. So, like, how do you actually build for this, right? I want to offer here four principles, not a blueprint, but the lessons that transfer across in any institution. First, treat compliance as a core architecture. Build it into the transaction path itself, not just a wrapper you put after you deliver the finished product. Retrofitting is where things break. Second, design for auditability from day one. So if you can't produce a defensible record, screening alone won't save you when a examiner shows up. Uh, Third, the engineer for third is essentially consider for concurrency deliberately. Correctness under parallel screening has to be designed in from start, not discovered in the production when something goes wrong. And the fourth and the last one, the meta lesson. Foundational bits retrofitted every time. The institutions that build this in from the beginning are in a completely different position than the ones which are trying to bolt it in now. Um, so let's try to look into why this matters beyond the compliance. So let me pull back and put some numbers on why this matters. Three things. First, this proposed rule marks the first time in the US history that federal law would mandate a sanction compliance program for the entire category of US persons. That's not incremental, it's a genuine first. Second, more than 195 institutions are participating in a dominant in institutional travel rule network. So this is already operating at real scale across the industry. Um, and the third, once the rules are finals, the issuers are looking at roughly a 12 months of runway to build the compliant infrastructure, which is, as anyone who has built these systems knows, it's not enough time. That's a really crunch of time to build something like this at scale. And underneath all this is a real point. Effective crypto compliance is a line of defense against sanction evasion and financial crime. This isn't just paperwork, it's national security interest and is now becoming a return into the law. Um, so let's try to understand the widening gap where it lies, which brings me essentially to what I think is a defining dynamic of this moment. As these rules take effect, the industry is splitting into two groups. On one side, the institutions that build compliance early, for them, compliance is a foundational infrastructure. Adopting to these rules is incremental and it's just a tuning exercise for them, essentially. They're operating from a position of strength. On the other side, the institutions retrofitting now, they are bolting compliance onto the product that were never designed for. Building core capabilities under deadline pressure and carrying real risk during the transition. And remember, even the regulators couldn't finish on time. Now imagine being an institution trying to build the actual system under that same pressure. The gap between those two groups is going to define who is going to thrive in the next era. So, just to summarize it, uh, let me try to land the plane. The lesson of Genius Act era is this: compliance engineering has become the defining discipline of institutional crypto. It's no longer the department that says no at the end. It's the infrastructure that determines whether you can operate at all. Um, and the firm that understand that early, that treated compliance as a foundational engineering rather than last minute checkbox, are not the ones scrambling now. That's the whole lesson in one sentence. Built it in or suspend the next year trying to catch up. Um, uh, that's all I guess I had. I just want to thank you for for your time. I'm happy to take any questions if you may have, whether that's about regulatory landscape or engineering challenges, or where you think your own institution sits on that gap I just described. I would love to hear what you're seeing. Um, uh, um, that's all I guess I had.
If any participant has any question, they can raise their hand.
Hey, hi, Miss Speaker. This is Abhiram this side. Am I audible?
Yeah, we can hear you, Abhiram.
I heard your concept little thoroughly. Even I was doing a research on crypto right now.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to ask a question or just a suggestion, I say,
Mm-hmm.
for situations that can happen like during what happened with Prada as Kolhapuri chappals, or even with turmeric or basmati.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible, or is it a good concept if crypto is being connected with intellectual property rights? So, say, as somebody is generating a coin based on some product, or let's say some concept,
Mm-hmm.
based on that particular intellectual property right, the funds or the shares or the rights to that particular concept can be percently or discreetly been shared with the particular person who has intellectual property right into that particular concept or an equation into crypto.
Mm-hmm.
What it can do is into industrial scale, let's say some company makes Kolhapuri chappals and its vectors are similar to a GI tag which has already been present. You
Mhm.
can, if the money has been flowed to crypto and intellectual property rights, the copyright has been striked. Rather than you not allowing them to use your product, you can ask them for shares directly into the crypto using IPR.
Mhm.
What
And
I would
that's
suggest.
Yeah, that's an interesting suggestion. I have, I guess, two thoughts on that. I think first of all, in this example, I guess, first of all, if the design for Kolhapuri chappal, if it was patented at this point, Prada wouldn't like they wouldn't have been able to copy it just like blindly. Um, and as far as cryptocurrency tied to the intellectual rights, that is a really interesting suggestion, actually. As of now, something like that doesn't exist.
And
As of now, from stablecoin industry standpoint, you can have crypto that is backed by some fiat, as in like a standard value, or it might be like backed by other cryptocurrency assets. It might be backed by some sort of stocks, but something like this, at least today, I don't believe exists. Um, yeah, something worth thinking about, I guess.
that's why we are presenting, having a topic as a speaker.
Hmm. Yeah,
That was
that's
that was my question. Thank you so much for addressing it.
thank you. I appreciate the question.
Okay, so thank you,